for an indication. Good morning, all. I'm speaking to you from my home in Vienna, Virginia. I'm Reverend John Peter Giunta, and I was ordained in 2004. So this is 20 years, and you have your landmarks too, and your road posts, signposts. I'd like to talk this morning about the history, a little bit of the history of the unity movement, and more broadly, the New Thought movement, because all of that connects with a broad area of knowledge that has to do with human well-being. And this human well-being is an idea that is accessible to everyone. And that's one of the hallmarks of the New Thought movement. And in going backwards now, it'll give you an idea of what we can expect this morning. So at the very end of my presentation, I'm going to be giving some techniques that people can use to send psychic healing messages, or use a technique that will use your nervous system, that will use your higher mind, higher thought brain waves in order to transmit healing energy. And this is one of the things that was revived by the New Thought movement. And in looking at our history, we can see that these ideas have existed for many, many centuries. And those of you who have an awareness of practices of the Eastern schools of thought within yoga, you know that the mind has been a powerful tool recognized over many centuries and several millennia at least. So we have the ideas coming from a broad spectrum of thought. And this is one of the reasons that I have been drawn to the unity teachings, because all of the religions have their place and all of them have their value. So at the end, I'm going to be giving you some techniques that come from the mystery schools. I'm familiar intimately with 3 of them. And of course, those of us who are learning know that we never know all of it. We are always learning. And I've been very grateful to the schools and the way the knowledge has been transmitted, which is available to anyone who wishes to become a student. I won't guide you to a specific place because it may not be important. But the main idea is that we're able to feel that this power is available to everyone. So you have that available to you at the end. And before that, I'll talk a little bit about the sources of the knowledge that I'm here to transmit for you. And I'll go into a little bit of that now. I want to save most of the time for this technique because it is a matter of building the skills of the mind in order to use the power that all of us have. So some of the sources I have, I'll show you as a matter of fact. One of these is the heart of the New Thought movement, and it is by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. And Ms. Wilcox was also a mystic who wrote a lot of poetry and some very fine articles on this subject. And the broader picture of this is a book called World Scripture, which is a comparative anthology. And this is a very fine masterwork. And I believe it should be on the bookshelf of every student mystic, every person who's ever been interested in any spirituality, because the compilation is from over 100 scholars who've all contributed from a great many paths, all of the 5 major religious paths and philosophical paths, and some others as well. So we have the idea of a broad spectrum of knowledge through this book, World Scripture. And putting a fine point on it, of course, we have the writings of Mary Baker Eddy. And she was one of the modern pioneers of healing by Jesus Christ scientist. And that comma was mentioned in writing, but when I used to hear the term Christ scientist, I didn't hear the comma when people described it. And so it was a mystery to me until later I started doing my own research. So what are the tools for research? I'm fortunate to have had exposure to the teachings within the Montessori teaching system as they were put through the International Baccalaureate Organization, the primary years program. So what are some questions that help us learn? We have form, the thing you're studying. What is it like? The form. The function. How does it work? Causality. Why is this thing like it is? Change. How is it changing? Connection. How is it connected to other things? Perspective. What are the points of view? Responsibility. What is our responsibility with what we are studying? And then reflection. How do we know? So these are the rubrics within the International Baccalaureate Organization, the primary years program. And this outline can help any person of any age, I believe, to study more thoroughly and to cover all of the major points of probably any belief system. So these are the tools that I've been using to study about this. And a lot of the faith we have is going to guide us. This is regarding elements of faith, because the faith is the foundation of what we are and who we are. We have to know the difference between faith and so-called higher or hard knowledge. I'll say hard knowledge, meaning that we have proof, seeming proof, that helps us to understand and accept what some of these mysteries are and how we can cultivate our own skills. So I'm going to go now into a brief explanation of what we're going to do here. You know, of course, that we have brain waves, and all of these brain waves have frequencies, a periodicity. How many times per second is something vibrating? Now, we have a range of hearing, a range of vibrations that the human ear can pick up. And this range goes from about 70 vibrations per second up to maybe a little over 13,000 vibrations per second. That's the range for the human ear. Above or below that, in theory, we cannot hear. The brain waves go from about 5 cycles per second up to maybe 35 cycles per second. Not audible by the human ear. That slow vibration will not make the eardrum vibrate. So a lot of this is faith. How do we know the vibrations exist? We know they exist because brilliant people, brilliant scientists over the years have been able to pick up on these vibrations with electronic instruments. So if you're wondering why the brain waves might be important to a student mystic, why? Well, it's because they exist. We want to know everything possible about the human mind, because the human mind is the vehicle with which we're going to communicate with the cosmic or God. The terms that you like are fine. And we're going to use these vibrations, attuning ourselves with these vibrations in order to transmit healing to other people, people in need. And I believe this is one of the primary ways for us to feel a connection with the divine, being able to use these vibrations, use them for healing. I'm going to play a little bit of sound now. And another instrument I have is this pan flute. This is called a tenor. It has 25 pipes. And I'm going to play this in a way that uses the breath as a rhythmic tool. This is not going to be a recognizable melody of any kind. It's going to be an improvisation. I invite you to breathe with me and become relaxed. The sound is going to help us all to feel the foundation of our faith in vibrations and the effectiveness that we can have with these teachings. So we'll sit with the feet flat on the floor as you are able to sit with the spine straight. Relax the face muscles. And feel that your breathing is coming into a peaceful rhythm. You're feeling a natural tidal volume of movement. Continuing with the breath. We can feel there's a difference now when we allow ourselves to move rhythmically. The air comes in easily, and we let it flow outward easily, feeling at peace. We will gently come back from this deeper relaxation, feeling the present moment, feeling the presence of each other. I'm going to give us now some techniques that will help us to visualize another person for a healing technique. Now, this is alluded to in many of the techniques of healing, specifically in the practice of Reiki. This name comes from Japan by a Japanese master, but also Reiki is the laying on of hands, which is mentioned so often in the Bible, the laying on of hands. That's what Reiki is. So regardless of the name, these techniques go on and on through the centuries. So in visualizing whom we want to heal, or more specifically, to whom we wish to transmit our own mental vibrations, the very high frequencies, we first have to master a few techniques as we are able. And one of them is how to focus the mind. This is something that is very elusive to some people who have not studied about this material, because it is a mystery of how to concentrate. All the time, we're hearing people say regularly to themselves, I can't concentrate, or I don't have any patience, or I don't know how to relax. Now, these are major stepping stones. I won't say obstacles. They're only obstacles if you think they are. But when we have a technique as valuable as transmitting of healing vibrations, we know that we are motivated. We know that we are motivated. So one of the first things we want to master is how to let go of thoughts that you might feel are intrusive or invasive. So as we're sitting here, we're noticing other thoughts are coming through the mind. All kinds of things. The weather, our material possessions, what we want to have for brunch. All of these things are rushing through the mind regularly for every person. In order to refocus the mind, we want to let go of the idea of their importance. We don't want to have any importance attached to these thoughts. So you don't embroider them up with your attachments to the thoughts. We let them pass through the mind. And this is the way we're going to feel that we have more control. So we allow the mind to come back. We let go of the thoughts without giving them any importance. Some people will feel that this is a very tough thing to master. And that's okay, but you want to come back to the idea that you are able to learn anything. What one person can learn, another person can learn. So you allow the mind to come back each time. Each time it wanders, you let it come back. And over time, you will become better and better at concentrating. So let's think of an object, meaning a subject, for our healing this morning. The first thing you want to be able to do in your meditative position, with your spine straight, feeling that your breathing is very steady, is you visualize a white screen in your mind. Now, this alone is an effort, but the more you practice, the better you will get. I believe this. So you're visualizing a white screen. And then you think of a person to whom you would like to send some healing vibrations. This could be someone whom you know. It could be a public figure. It could be someone in the news, possibly, or someone you've heard about who could use a little psychic help. And then you take that person's image and you put it on that white screen in your mind. You're visualizing the face of this person in as much detail as you can. You're seeing the face, the outline. You're seeing the hair, the features of the face. And you concentrate on forming this image in as much detail as you can. And that is an important idea. And faith, it has a lot to do with how we do this, because we're building our techniques. The strength of your mind is not fully realized. No one's is. So you're seeing the face of this person. And then you're going to put your personality, your energy into being that person. So as you're building this face in your mind, the image becomes stronger and stronger with your concentration. You're going to feel what it is to be in that person's body. Does this take practice? You bet. So you're feeling the essence of this person, the way they move, the way they speak. You're feeling the tempo of the way they live. And then through you is going to come the energy of God, or the cosmic, as you wish to call this vast power. You're feeling this power through you going to that person, going into the image that you see in your mind's eye. And you're allowing this power to come through you. It doesn't come from you, but it is coming to you and then through you to the subject of your healing. You're allowing this energy to flow. You feel that it is strong, it is vast, it is an infinite source of goodness coming through you to that person. Keep building. I'll call you back in about a minute. Building the image. Vast power coming through you. When you have the image built as strongly as you can make it, with as much power that you can feel coming through you, You take a deep breath in, and then as you exhale the breath, you release the image into space. You allow the whole image to go from you to that person. And you let it go. It is done. You've done your work. So you can do this as often as you like, as long as you're feeling the power, the concentration. So a lot of these techniques do have to be worked on. It's a constant effort to build these things, to build these skills. So that is the essence of the technique. This is spoken of, as I mentioned, in a number of the mystery schools. I won't even name them. You want to pick something that you're comfortable with, a belief system that is connected to what you already know. And there are many fine sources of some of this knowledge. So I'm going to release the subject with another sound row. I'm going to use the Native American flute this morning. There are many of these too. This is of a modern manufacture. So I'm going to play a brief melody for you as we're coming back into the group. So we'll release into the present once again. We release the technique, having faith in our ability to realize our mission. And one of the main purposes, as you know, for the unity work and the other schools is to help others. It makes us feel more complete, more useful, if I could use that term, to be in the world with a purpose. So we're coming back. So at this time, I'm going to acknowledge our brother Neil. How are we doing, sir? I'm happy to know this. So, in going back to review, I gave us some sources for the knowledge about these healing systems, specifically about the way of healing using our thought energy. And I gave us some sources, a few books that have been very useful. Online sources can be very good too. And I will mention one that I think is a terrific one, encyclopedia.com. And in that site, we have a listing for New Thought Movement. New Thought Movement on encyclopedia.com. And another one, a source that exists in a PDF form, portable document file, that's PDF. It's a history of the New Thought Movement by Horatio Dresser, 1919. It's an early book. And the index entries include Mary Baker Eddy of Christian Science and Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the founders of our beloved Unity movement. And also member a name is mentioned, the earliest source of some of the knowledge and philosophy of the New Thought movement came from Phineas Quimby. Phineas Quimby. And he wrote the Quimby manuscripts, which may be accessible to you over the internet. I haven't looked specifically for those, but these three names are in the History of the New Thought Movement by Dresser. And if you know how to tickle the keyboard keys, you will eventually find a PDF if you are interested in finding the source of this history. So thanks for listening to all of this. And I would like to invite any questions or comments that you might have at this time. So if you'd like to unmute.
So we're going to continue the recording then, if you would like to ask some questions. I know that some people are, well, a lot of us are very familiar with Myrtle's, I guess, plight with, what is it, TB, or she had some respiratory issues and she healed herself through some of the methods that you were talking about. She refused to accept the diagnosis from mainstream medical professionals or whatever. And anybody else like to comment on that? If you want to unmute your screens.
Thank you, John, for your message. I believe that you highlighted three sources, and you mentioned that we ought to try to communicate with the person before us, anyone we're trying to relate to, the truth that as we see it, and all the organized religions were trying to identify themselves as worthy of their own existence and their power of the truth of their message. And of recent days, I've been thinking, what is it that I can do today that will be a communication that will try to get everyone to realize, everyone on the planet to realize that ego and money and power are all evil things. And what you pointed out this morning is that we are witnessing today and for years past the truth of what you said about we're here to communicate to our brothers from a smile to actually, many of us have learned that a pedantic, what's the term, where you try evangelistic kind of pitch turns people off because they don't want to hear that what they believe is bullcrap. They want to hear that what they believe is absolutely true and that they're in the right group with the right group of people. And your message has been on point with the message that you've told us that is what Jesus was here to tell us all, and what all of the prophets were trying to tell us. And I'm suggesting that this message and your way of being, and hopefully my way of being, is communicating that love is the answer, and confidence that Myrtle had that her body was not a harbor for disease. And I've recently been given a diagnosis of cancer throughout my body, and there's nothing I can do about it surgically. It's going to plague me, and I'm using what I can of Myrtle's teachings and what you're got to persuade my subconscious mind that that's all in my mind, and it's not any of it is true. So I'm I'm just living each day as lovingly as I can with my Patty and my friends like you all. And I feel strongly that this message that you highlighted today has been with us throughout the history of religion, because everybody has been wondering what really is true, no matter what religious group I'm listening to. And it's a challenge. But as I'm at 91, I'm of the opinion that when I was 18 or 16, I was feeling a little bit egotistical about the what do they call it when a person is a half a believer and breaks the rules. I used to have judgments about the insincerity of these people who are claiming to know it all and to be absolutely right, and they're turning people off in droves and breeding atheists who want none of it. But your message this morning, and the message that Jesus was clearly sent to augment all of the truth of the both texts of the Bible, are messages from God. And that gives me hope that God can be trusted. And that's really what all religions are really trying to say. But they're trying to say that their way is the right way. And the biggest problem we have in this world is there's a few people who feel egotistically empowered to believe they're right to such a degree, they're willing to force it on others. And they gather people to their clutches and under their wings who are, there's two kinds of people. Some people want to take up a leadership role, and other people are looking for someone to lead because they don't feel self-confident sufficiently to take leadership. Leadership is a responsibility that's burdensome. And but I love, as you can tell by what I've said, I loved your message this morning because it's been so compatible with my current status in life.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Bob. It's also, part of Unity's beliefs too, self-healing. So would somebody else like to say what's on their mind?
Be less verbose than I was. I apologize.
That's okay. There's no apologies necessary.
Oh. Well, I first want to say, Bob, that you will become part of my morning meditation, using whatever techniques that
And John too.
and John as well. But I mean, I was thinking about what Bob was just saying, that hopefully I can work on these techniques and send you a little bit of energy. Don't know if that's how that will work out, because I mean, I have a history of being, as a young child, open to anything. Nothing was beyond my imagination. Nothing was beyond possible. I think the plan for my life has always been to be someone who was on the edges, not in the mainstream. And then I became skeptical of those things. My best friend family was Christian Scientists, and we were very close all the way through young times. And they moved to Pennsylvania. She came home and stayed with me for when we were in high school for about a week, and they went and saw the Beatles, and when they were here in DC. And so she went home. Yeah, there you go. And she became ill. And, you know, her parents told me, don't worry, you know, we know how to handle this. And it wasn't long before she died of pneumonia. And all those things that I believe so strongly. And I said, well, you know, I don't have to worry about Becky. She's going to be perfectly fine. And then I lost a little bit of that openness to things. I'm like, well, maybe I was fooling myself. Maybe there's not anything to this stuff, you know. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten it back, you know. I realized that was just an incident. And at a time in my life, you know, when you're 14 or 15, that's really, you know, a time in your life when those kind of things are impactful. And so I appreciate your messages and all your messages, which helped me to reclaim some of that cosmic, you know, that you were talking about, some of that, to not dismiss anything, to you know, we know so little. I saw an astronomy thing last night. We went to that's why we have this back here, because we had it back for our astronomy meeting last night. And there was a woman there. She had a thing from NASA. She's like a NASA ambassador, and she had this big, there was like a circle that had space in it, and then there's this little tiny sliver out of it that said things we know. And then the next one was a little bit bigger sliver, things we don't know. And almost all, I mean, basically the whole pie was things that we don't know, we don't know. And there were all the things out there that we can't even conceive of unless you just open your mind. So I think listening to that last night, listening to you this morning was very invigorating for my whatever, you know, soul, whatever.
And I want to say
Mhm.
happy 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
And
Did you hear? Yeah. Okay.
2024 is becoming an important. I turned 40 this year, and I'm finding that a lot of things were being prepared so that I could experience them in time to be in the right place to experience them. And and you're definitely one of them, and this group is one of them. So I think it's for all of that. And I recently heard a rabbi say, I don't know if this was on a recording the last time I said it, but God said, I am what I am. And God also said, I am what I am becoming. So I just find that very inspiring.
Okay.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Your comments are always welcome. I'm so grateful to be among you as I always have been. You know, I wanted to mention one of the techniques that I'm using for myself. I've been at this, the teaching of yoga for many years. This year, it'll be about 50 years, 50.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful. But one of the things I like doing is when I'm doing some of the postures, for example, something called the Sphinx, where we're on our front, we have our forearms down on the floor. And in thinking about the Sphinx as a monument, I'm thinking about the long millennia that it has existed. We now think that the Sphinx is maybe going back to about 14,000 years ago. And that's a long time, you know. So I'm thinking about the huge amounts of time. One turning of our Milky Way galaxy is about 230 million years once around. And our species of Homo sapiens, we're only about 6 million. So that's not even 1% of the revolution of the galaxy.
And
So
you
all
don't
these,
look a day older than that either.
oh, thank you. It's my new facial cream. But the point being is that I visualize the vastness of time and how little it means to my happiness. If I can connect with these immortal, seemingly immortal landmarks of time, I can feel less preoccupation with how much time I have and more acknowledgement of how much is possible with the evolution of the soul. So I'm using those ideas to bolster my own health as I'm advancing. And I try to minimize the attachments I have to some of the earthly things. Does it work? Yes, sometimes it works. So we all want to keep going. Have a little humor, if I may, and this is especially for Zach and all of those other soul personalities listening. A little boy was praying to God, and he said, God, how much is 1,000,000? And God answered, 1,000,000 is like nothing. And the little boy said, and God, how much is eternity? And God replied, eternity is like 1 second. So the little boy thinks for a moment. He says, God, may I have $1,000,000? And God said, sure, wait a second.
Yeah, there's a follow-up to that. There's this man runs into his rabbi and says, Rabbi, my son just left me and became a Christian. And the rabbi goes, oh my goodness, my son left me and became a Christian. Let's pray to God about it. And they pray to God, and God said, funny you should mention that.
Excellent.
Yes,
How
Leon.
truly excellent.
John, I really thank you for how informative this was today, and the sliver of the universe that we know. My sliver is a lot less than what Jody knows, but anyway, it just strikes me that through the diversity of the traditions of different religions and how folks viewpoints differ, that paradoxically it all kind of comes back to the same place when we start talking about what's possible and what we can become. So thank you for that. And Jody, I on a personal note, was that Becky Payne that you were talking about by chance?
From lived on Village Drive where I lived. It's Payne. This doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think that. No,
no, it's not
okay.
Becky Payne. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, they. I mean, she may have gone to. I don't know what schools you went to, but she may have gone to school with you. If you were around in Fairfax. But they very, very faithful family. Very, very beautiful family. And
Nice
it was
kid.
yeah.
If it was who I was thinking of.
Yeah, I'm pretty. It's when you said that, her last name went out of my mind.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, it wasn't Payne, Becky Payne.
Well, maybe it's two nice people in the world there.
Yeah, there could be two nice Beckys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but also keep, and maybe don't want to keep the possibility that you are sharing the same person.
It could be. It could be.
Well, we're still sharing. Remember, the recording is still going. So I want.
Oh.
Oops.
You cut that part out.
Yes.
Actually, I hope that more people listen to this than we might imagine.
Well, see, that's the thing that I always struggle with, because I know that your beloved Patty too would not like to have the recording go on when she shared, so we stopped the recording. Some people felt more comfortable with that, but this is so invaluable to bring relevance to the actual talk, because sometimes I actually think that the talk amongst ourselves and the sharing is as important, if not sometimes even more important, than the actual message.
Amen.
And this is what is so critical about meeting here on Sunday. So let me go right into our affirmations, because it's we want to close out the service shortly. But I think this is good that we're an open book to our congregation and to people that listen to the recordings, and that's what I guess brings relevance and beauty to our Sunday gatherings. I mean, that's why I cherish them. So, divine order flowing through all of us, blesses and multiplies all that we are, all that we have, all that we give, and all that we receive. And our prayer of protection, or some people would like to say prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Amen. And now I'm going to stop the recording unless you have something else that you'd like to say, John, relative to the talk today or the comments.
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate deeply the opportunity to share with you, and I hope to do it again and again. I deeply appreciate also your comments that you make. As Neil says, they're all valuable. We're all in this together, and the sharing gives us meaning. So thank you most sincerely for your opportunities.
Well, thank you for sharing today, and let me close the recording portion before we get ourselves in true trouble.